Can I ask you? Obviously, when the violence was at its peak, the Meitei-dominated areas, there was a de facto division between the Meitei areas and the Kuki areas. You said today that the state is practically like two different nations, two different states. There's no actual formal division, but there's a de facto division. Does it continue to be as sharp as it was at the height of the violence? Or could you today, as a Meitei, go into a Kuki area? Could you go to Churachandpur? Could someone from Churachandpur come to Imphal?
No. You can't.
You Bimol could not go to Churachandpur today?
I cannot. And this is asked Prime Minister, and is this normal? Is this what you call normal? What happens to Article 19? Movement of citizens should have this free movement. And the national highway.
And they wouldn't come to your, Kukis wouldn't come to Meitei areas either.
Come, and that's what the BJP government saying, that sab changa hai, everything is hanky-dory, is normal. Is this normal? I'm saying it. Is this normal? 60,000 people linguisting in wretched conditions, whatever case histories that I have read during my association with the Partition Project, it is exactly the same thing that I see. The humiliation. That's what I said. Violence is not an event. It is a process. There has been an everyday forms of violence. Women, newly married people, back in a small place with father-in-law, brother-in-law, taking bath in the open. This is something that I have read in case studies on partition experience and how traumatic that experience is. And then people are going through right now. And Indian state is allowing this thing to happen. In fact, I would even dare say that they are the population, and once they shifted it right under the nose of their administration, this have been flattened out. How is it that they stay? And Barkha, just allow me to say this. You were also an experienced journalist. Please think about this. Manipur is one of the most militarized states in this country. Within the police system also, remember that armed police is normally less than 10% in the rest of the states, except for very few. In Manipur, you have more armed policemen than the civil police. Besides this, you have thousands of regular army, paramilitary forces, and central police organization. Each and every square centimeter is covered by these troops. And yet, 60,000 people lost their homes. 200 plus people got slaughtered. People can't move freely. Besides the Armed Forces Special Power Act, you remember to maintain so-called law and order in the aid of civil authority. And then besides that, you have this CRPC 131, where the army units are supposed to respond to public disorder to protect life and property of people, even without the permission of the civil authority. Despite all these things, you must ask this question: how come 60,000 plus people have lost their homes? How come 200 people were slaughtered? Is this 11,000, FIR is going to answer that question? It's an abject failure of these troops. Who's going to fix this accountability? How did this unit allow us to be destroyed in front of them? This army deployment.
But in the end, you need state intervention. The troops are only following orders, right? The state has to respond. It has to be a political.
No. That is true. But at the same time, you can't escape. The lane gives the unit commander to act under CRPC 131. And under APSPA promulgated area, they have already got the order from the government. What do you mean by that we don't get the order? This is one thing that every army commanders and officers of the Central Police Organization, just as the SPs and the DSPs, there's IPS officers and the MPS officers, all must be held accountable. Besides the political masters, the political executive, who have allowed this thing to happen, and it's still refused. So
Yeah, you and I have
Let me
often
move into
spoken.
this. I'm just saying, let's not do. It's not even a blame game. I'm simply asking a constitutional questions. When the APSPA has already been imposed, means that the government, the political executive, has given you the power to act. CRPC 131 has allowed you to act. How is it the police officers, these responsible police officers, or the army officers, or they couldn't act where the order is already there in written form? Armed Forces Special Power Act, CRPC 131. Over and above that, what I'm saying is that a very, very, dedicated officers would know my questions, what I meant. But this doesn't mean that our political executive, they also have to take the responsibility, far more greater responsibility than those officers, because they
No,
have allowed these things to go on and not even talked about it.
I was just saying, you and I have often spoken about the dangers of the fact that both the police and the military in different parts of Manipur, their authority is being challenged by people. And depending on which part of Manipur you go to, either the police is being challenged or the army is being challenged. Now, my question to you in the end is this, Bimol. What next? Every few months we hear Biren Singh may resign. That doesn't happen. The Prime Minister says attempts are on. We are trying. We are trying. What is the next step? What is needed now? What is immediately needed?
Yeah, I think the first thing first, I wish that there is a joint parliamentary committee to investigate this violence. Then this is against the constitutional mandate. It is against the spirit of this country. So I think, no less than a joint parliamentary committee, I wish, must be formed to investigate it and fix accountability for this violence, a partition-like violence that have been allowed against our own citizens of this country. And I think the government should come clean. See, sometimes they said narco-terrorism, the state government says, then the Home Minister said it has nothing to do with terrorism. And the government says again that this is a fight between communities. And then another government says that this is not a fight between communities, it is between foreign elements and the state government, Indian state and the foreign elements. What is the truth? You create, this is, if I remember correctly, it is Chanakya once said, if you cannot convince people, then make them confused. That is exactly what they're doing. In this confusion, they are trying to hide their abject failure. And I think that the government should come up, clarity, what is this issue? I think this two thing is what I think is needed. And I'm sure that once the Prime Minister showed a little bit of an iota of honesty and desire to solve it and said, no, now kya karna hai? Hum log kya kar sakta hai? Let's sit down together. I think people like me, and all of us will come down and say, okay, let's do. But remember that executive power is with the ruling party, not with the Congress. The initiative must come from them. And not this denial and making confusing statements, contradictory statement. And that should not be allowed.